Welcome everybody to the Northwoods Kindred Podcast. I'm Bodvar, the chieftain and Gothi of the Northwoods Kindred. And today I'm going to take you through this kind of a verbal walk of a kindred gathering. From start to finish, from the planning all the way up to and including the end of the gathering. Who comes when, what happens, how does this whole thing conducted, what's the anatomy of a gathering, because I understand that a lot of people have never actually been to a kindred gathering and they don't really know just what that entails. And I can understand it can be kind of frustrating or possibly even scary to try and put one together, especially for the first time. So we're just going to walk through the anatomy, and you got to understand that here our gatherings are a little kind of over the top. We really do enjoy them. It's a big celebration every month for us, but where we came from, our mother kindred in California, our gatherings were just a Saturday afternoon affair. We'd show up late in the morning or early afternoon, and we'd stay until the evening, and then that was the whole gathering. But here at the Northwoods, now we stretch it out. Generally, our kinsmen start showing up Friday after work, and everybody will be around here hanging out and being kin until Sunday morning easily. Once in a while, somebody will have to bug out early, but generally speaking, that's the schedule that we go on. So before I go down that road and start really dissecting this, I want to talk about last week's podcast, episode number 5. I've been kind of getting a little bit of flack here and there about that because there's so many people who disagree with my opinion. And one of the things I hear a lot is, who put you in charge, or you're just trying to make this your thing. Nothing could be further from the truth, folks. I just want to say that if I'm giving off the impression somehow that I think I have some authority somewhere, that's not the case at all. My authority begins and ends with my kindred, which is a very small kindred in North Idaho. I'm just doing the channel and doing this stuff, the podcast and the videos and all that other stuff just to share. I've been on the path for 30 years and I've really enjoyed it, and I see new people coming in droves, and they don't have any real guidance that they can, they can really sink their teeth into. That gives them something they can do. It's not hiding behind a paywall. It's not some special insiders thing. It's just out here, free and available to anybody that wants to do it. Now, that doesn't put me in charge of anything except the things that I do. I don't want to claim that I have the map that all your kindred should be gathering by. I don't want to claim any of that garbage. I very much believe that this path is an individual one and that you need to develop it for you. And I'm pretty sure that that's about the most historic way that it probably was back then too. The one last time was, I got it from kind of both extremes, but the point really is that we're doing this for those moderates in the middle, not to any extreme or the other when it comes to this faith, because ultimately, if you just want to honor the gods and mind your own business and stay out of the fight and the hassle, then that's why I'm giving this information to you, because I know that when you go out looking for that information, you end up in these groups and stuff like that where people are always combative. We have a really nice Discord. There'll be a link around here somewhere, and you can get to our Discord, and we're a really good group, and we won't tolerate the kind of stuff that a lot of other groups will put up with. And they'll, and in most cases, there'll be no warning. So, just to shorten it up, I'm just a Gothi of some podunk, tiny little kindred in North Idaho, and you can listen to me or don't. These are all just my way. It's just the way I learned it. It's the way I do it, the way we developed it, and we're just trying to share that with people who don't have a better way. But if you can take it and build a better way, that's why. That's the point. If you can ignore it altogether because you already have a better way, that's great too. Hopefully we're entertaining at the same time. But we're going to move on from that. All right, first things first, we're going to talk about the anatomy of a gathering, and this is going to be amazing. It might be the first time that some of you have ever even thought about what it takes to put together a gathering and what it looks like on the inside, because if you hadn't been to one, there's really not too many things that compare to the feeling of being at a kindred gathering, especially with a well-oiled machine like the Northwoods Kindred. And I say that half in jest, so don't think I'm getting all ego. So I want to say The first thing we do is we tend to have a gathering every month, at least one, and it's a seasonal celebration for the most part. So I know historically there's only three gatherings per year, but there were probably other certain celebrations that people enjoyed, seasonal celebrations and whatnot, besides the three major festivals. Some Asatru groups stick with just the three. They only bloat on, Sigurblot, Misvetrarblot, or Vinternatur, which would be Yule. So they usually only get those three in per year, but they make them big affairs. And I'm not here to tell anybody what's right or wrong. I just want to say that in the Northwoods, we gather every month, we bloat every month, we sum almost every month, and we find a reason to do it. In most cases, there's some custom or neighboring custom that we can borrow from in order to craft a ritual that will give us a reason to venerate the gods for that month. And that's really, we're unapologetic about that. I think you probably know that by now. That we just enjoy each other's company, and why not do it, and why not invite the gods to take part in that with us. So, and a good example would be like, right now we're in the month of February, and I know a lot of people, even on some of the online calendars, they say volley bloat. I guess he has a bow and arrow like Cupid, but other than that, there's zero connection between volley and Saint Valentine. And, we complain a lot about the Christians taking Yule, and they take Ostar, and they take these things from the pagans. Let them have their Valentine's Day, man, because for that matter, St. Patrick's Day as well. We have things we can do. We have celebrations that are historic, or some that are UPG, but we can celebrate every month, and we don't need to take something like that and then turn it into, the only thing they really have in common, volley and Valentine, are the names sound similar. And that's not enough. That's not enough, guys. If you're having a volley bloat, I don't want to tell you it's wrong, but that's not what we do here. In February, it's the time of dissing, so we would be doing a Disa bloat. And generally, the Disa bloat is not a large-scale gathering. It's a household thing. And, of course, our kinsmen can come if they want, but there's generally no guests, no outside interference or influence on our Disa bloat. So that's very personal to us. So we did put one up on our YouTube channel. We recorded it last year. It's when we first started our journey here. And we recorded our Disa bloat along with Charming of the Plow. And then the footage kind of just got shuffled away and lost because we were kind of just figuring all this stuff out last year. So we found that footage and we went ahead and knocked together a video. It's not the greatest, shaky cameras and whatnot, but we're learning, and that's part of the process for us. So we did have that Disa bloat, but this year we decided let's keep that to ourselves. And, because it is so personal, and there's, there has to be some time when you keep things to yourself and you don't necessarily feed them to the public, like everything else. So that's something internal for us, but we will do Charming of the Plow, and this is a good opportunity for us to venerate Njord, the father of Frey and Freya. So it's a good time to add him into our cycle of veneration, as well as this is the opportunity or the time that historically they would bless the plow, or the charming of the plow, and they would bless the plow so that when the snow melted and when the land was clear, it was time to get to digging up dirt. So we don't live by the plow anymore, so we don't do that. We do have the Charming of the Plow ritual, and what happens is all of our kinsmen and guests, they bring an item that represents their trade. So they might bring a chef's knife or a plumber's wrench or any number of different things. And the kids too, maybe not their trade if they're not working, but their maybe their favorite subject in school or one of their goals in the future. But whatever it is, we bring in some semblance of that, and we bless that for our Charming of the Plow ritual, which will go to Njord, which of course is connected to a plenty of abundance and maybe not wealth, but just like an abundant lifestyle. So that's a really good way to just kind of create your own ritual and venerate who you want. So that's the way we do it, and that goes every month, and we'll find a reason. And I guess one of the odder ones we have is the middle of the month is July, and July we do a bloat to Heimdall, and we also venerate our ancestors in July. We do it again later in the year, but in July. And then July is the birthday of our kindred, so we do a big birthday celebration, mead competition, all that kind of fun stuff. And we also do a little veneration of Sveinborn Bwentensen, the grandfather of Asatru in Iceland. So we venerate him because his birthday was July 4th, which is American Independence Day. So we add that into our celebrations as well, just to pay homage to where it came from, because a lot of the kinsmen that we get don't have years on the path. And as much as we want to learn how to do this and move the religion forward, we don't want to forget those that helped us get to where we are at now. So once we decide on which god or goddess or deity we're going to venerate that month, then we try to put together a little bit of a plan for the bloat. Like, what are we going to do? Is there other work that's going to be done? What do we need? We need chairs, we need firewood, we need these other things. So we have to try and build somewhat of a little bit of a plan. And then we draw up an order. And we do, every gathering, we do this operations order. It's a 5-paragraph order, orientation, situation, mission, execution, admin and logistics, and command and signals, just like you would see in any military operations order. And so we draw this order up, and it covers the event from start to finish so that everybody is prepared. Because I've found that the less time that I have to spend explaining the next step, then the faster we can move into it and then keep everything rolling on schedule and nice and organized. So we draw up the order, and it's going to cover things like how many guests we have, how many kinsmen are coming or have rogered up, if there's any extra events that are taking place, like Ostara. We do this big Ostara quest, which is an absolute blast. Yule is just packed with extracurricular type activities, and sometimes we just have a gathering and we have a craft gathering where we're going to do something like build a pack basket or build a wool hood or make a knife or something like that. Because we have a pretty good shop here, and we can do a lot of cool stuff like that, and we can pass those skills on. This summer's craft gatherings will probably all revolve around tanning hides, because we're starting to get a pretty big collection of hides, and they have to be taken care of. But so if that was part of the gathering, that would be in the plan, and it would say, bring rubber boots and gloves or whatever, so that everybody comes prepared and knows what's going on. So we'll talk about the events and stuff. And then we break it down and we go into the food. Who's bringing what's the main meal, what are the sides, what are some sides we need. All of that will go into the order as well. And any other arrangements that need to be made. If you have to bring something, if you're going to be doing some activity that you want everybody else to do or take part in, or the sleeping arrangement in a lot of cases, because most times in the summer, we tend to just throw a sleeping bag out and we all sleep out in the stars around the Vey, certainly around our birthday party. And so we want to make sure that everybody has the right information and comes prepared to enjoy the entire gathering, not just the little bits and pieces of it, which would be the case if we didn't share the information. Also, in a lot of those cases, we'll be doing crafts, and some of those crafts we charge for. Even our kinsmen, but it's not hey, come, pay this fee. It's really like we decide what craft we're going to do and how much all the materials are going to cost, and then we buy them, and then we divide it up between everybody who's doing the craft, and then they reimburse us the cost of the materials and everything. So that's really what it is. It's not like a pay-to-play gathering or anything like that. So kinsmen love it too, and usually what they're getting is, they pay, it's just a material cost. It's just so everybody is whole on the whole thing, because no one person should have to shoulder the whole load of that kind of thing. And then weather. There's a weather report we put in there, because a lot of our kinsmen, we got kinsmen that come in from Montana, around Idaho, over into Washington, some pretty far into Washington, and that takes planning, and part of that planning is the weather, as well as sleeping out. If we're sleeping out and we know that there's likelihood of rain, you might want to bring a tent this time, or a tarp, as opposed to just laying out under the stars. So it serves that whole purpose. That's a big part of the order. And once that's done, once we drop the entire order, then we issue it. And how we issue it is for our kinsmen, we have a shield wall chat group, so we dump the whole file in there, and then we also put it on one on our Discord, but that's just private. It's just for kinsmen. So we put that in the Discord as well. So they got a couple of shots at it, and if they have any questions or whatever, we can just kind of communicate back and forth, because it'll usually come out Sunday or Monday before the gathering. Sometimes we're a little late, or we don't have all the details, and it comes out a little bit closer to Friday, but for the most part, we try to get it out at the top of the week, so they got a little bit of time to either hit the grocery store, get their gear packed, and just be, a little time to prepare without being too, not having to scramble around too much to put their stuff together. So once the order's issued, we start to gather supplies for whatever meals we've rogered up for, any other thing we need. If we need lantern fuel, or firewood needs to get, staged out there, or I need propane, or we got to run a rope for a flag, like all these little materials, all these little things that people don't really think about. That's where Skogel and I will just kind of really get down and nitty gritty about what can we get done before our kinsmen arrive, because we try to, through the course of the week, get as much of the work done as possible, and then when they arrive, we just kind of divvy that out, and we all merrily go our way and finish up the remaining tasks before any of our guests arrive. So we gather and stage all the supplies to set it up, and then we adjust the plan, because sometimes we don't have what we need, or the weather's uncooperative and we have to do ritual indoors, or there's any number of things that can happen between the time we issue the order and the time we're ready to execute. So we just kind of make any adjustments we need to. Usually the most we'll see for an adjustment is based on the menu items. Somebody couldn't get what they thought they were going to get, or it's starting to get late, so we're going to just kind of simplify the process or something like that. So usually that's what happens, is changes in the menu, but we can work around that. The quality of our problems has improved at that point. So we issue the order, and then we adjust the plan, and then Friday is when our kinsmen arrive, and they could arrive anytime on Friday. If they got the day off, they generally come early, and we just kind of kick it. And then sometime after everybody gets out of work and everybody arrives, until everybody gets there, if everybody's expected on Friday, until they get there, we just kind of goof off a little bit. Definitely, like if I got a kinsman who's driving, from another state and just getting out of work, usually he packs his stuff in the car before a gathering, or before that morning, so he comes straight here from work. Now, in that case, jump in there, take a shower, get cleaned up, get comfortable. We'll make some food. Everybody gets fed, and then we'll start doing any other work that we can get done on that Friday. And the main thing that we really have to do is, once all the kinsmen get there, then we get together and we have our kindred meeting. And in our meeting, just like you'll see if you're an LLC or you have a not-for-profit, you have to conduct a meeting in a certain way. And we do that. We start our meetings every time with an oath of frith on the oath ring, and that's important to us. But it's an expired oath, so it's usually something pretty short and sweet. There's probably some videos around of us making that oath, and we just oath that we will keep frith and kinship above, front and center during this meeting. So if tempers start to flare or we disagree on something, then we've already oathed that we're going to stay calm and work it out, because I've seen some meetings get heated, and we don't want that in our kindred, because sometimes things get said that can't be taken back. So we definitely oath in, and then with the expiration date of the meeting. So if we can disagree calmly and cool through the meeting, once we close the meeting officially, then that oath has been fulfilled. And then if you guys want to go out back and box each other's ears, well, that's a whole different story. I will say that we always conduct the meeting in accordance very loosely with Robert's Rules of Order, which you can get a copy of Robert's Rules of Order, and you can go as detailed as you want. Without, essentially it's the same rules that govern Congress, and then we use it on a very minimal scale, but essentially just reading the minutes, accepting them, and then we go into old business, new business, etc. You've probably seen it before, but either way, that if you didn't know, that's Robert's Rules of Orders, and there's very specific rules on how it's laid out. We follow it very, very, very loosely. Another thing to note is we generally don't drink during our meetings. If we don't have any real business to do, we will maybe raise a vote to drink during the meeting and have a beer or wine or something. But when you're trying to discuss business, too much alcohol at the table everything gets off track, and sometimes tempers flare. It's always better to just kind of sober up a little and then do the meeting clean and sober, and then worry about all that other stuff later. So I'm sure you can see where that could go wrong fairly quickly. So after the meeting, depending on what we had to do or how much stuff goes on, we have a little bit of time to kill before it's time to hit the rack. And so we kill this in various different ways depending on what it is. We can do study. Sometimes we like to do a Havamal study or a rune study or even a rune readings. If our Vidki's there and he feels like doing it, then he can do some rune readings for us. And just general, like just being kinsmen. And sometimes we don't want to study. Sometimes we just want to just goof off. Maybe we had a hard week and we don't feel like reading about, Þór's journey to Utgard-Loki. Maybe we just want to sit down and play cards. So we'll do that too. And I mean, it's our kindred, right? We don't have to turn it into Bible study. We're just coming here to hang out and be kin anyway, and honor the gods. And sometimes you honor the gods by enjoying yourself and not putting in work that's unnecessary. So we'll do that. We'll study. We'll do runes. We'll play some cards. Most of us are from the Midwest, so euchre's kind of a thing here. So we always play euchre. We always got a deck or two ready to go for euchre. And we can also watch a movie. We can do a kindred movie night and that kind of stuff. But all that stuff, the important thing is this is all happening on Friday evening. After our kinsmen come out from work, we have a meal, we feed them, we take care of them, we have a meeting, and then we do all this other stuff. This is all just kinsmen at this point. And then Saturday, the next morning, that's where we start entertaining guests. We just kind of drink and have fun and relax and just kind of wind down from the stresses of the week. And then usually kinsmen just crashing either here in the office or I got cots, and if it's in the summer they're outside or whatever, but we don't stress too much about it. There's plenty of room here for the few people that would be here on a Friday night. And then Saturday morning, we usually kind of get up and at 'em, not too early, maybe 8 or so, knock together a quick breakfast, some scrambled eggs, bacon, pancakes, something like that for everybody. And then we just kind of real quick go over what work needs to get finished that we never got a chance to do. A lot of that will revolve around stocking firewood in the vey. Maybe we got to rake it out or shovel it if it's snow. We just kind of go down the list, and then we just kind of punch out, do our little thing, and come back. And then throughout this process, this is in the morning. This is where after we're doing this kind of work, this is when our guests will start showing up. So after the guests start showing up, that's where everything starts to become more business. It's still fun, it's still exciting and everything, but we got our kindred time in, and now, for all intents and purposes, even though I'm the chieftain of Gothi and this is all taking place at my house, for all intents and purposes, the kindred is hosting our guests. So that's essentially a Saturday morning while the guests arrive. And sometimes I'm out doing something and one of our kinsmen greets our guests. But just as it said in our very first video, we believe that every guest should be greeted at the door. And that's what we try to do. But so that's the thing with the guests is we like to rush out into the driveway and greet them and, give them a hug and shake their hand or whatever and help them with their bags and help them with their groceries or anything that's got to get done. Like they shouldn't be, I've been guests to other kindreds and I've been rolled up in the driveway with my family and stood out in the driveway in excess of 15 minutes waiting for somebody to come out and greet me because it's an unfamiliar place and you don't want to just barge into people's house and be like, hey, we arrived. It's interesting. It's interesting. It's a little bit strange. So if you are hosting a gathering or something, it is kind of nice to just make it a point to greet people in the driveway because a lot of people are coming in and they're nervous at a new place with new people and most people aren't the kind that are just going to go charge in the front door. They're going to kind of mill around a little bit, kind of stay close to their vehicle until somebody comes up, introduces themselves, and gets to know them. That's how people are. And it's different. It's just different than if you're invited to your friend's house for dinner. You're going to go knock on the door and then go in for dinner. But when you're going to a gathering for the first time with people you don't know, you have to take my word for it if you haven't done it. It is a different feeling. It is separate. So it's the host's job to really kind of reach in there and be like, hey, you're with us now. So relax, come on in, let me show you around, let me introduce you to some people, grab a drink out of the cooler, and then let's, get on with this. So that really will make or break kind of like the attitude of a gathering, because I know that when it happens to me, if I'm standing around for 10 or 15 minutes or something, that doesn't go away. You're already got a little bit of anxiety, and you're always like, you know what, like, can't even meet me in the driveway? Like, come on, man. So that doesn't just instantly go away. So it's nice if you can just make it not happen in the first place and make everybody feel welcome, and then it changes kind of the whole mood, especially when you start getting a lot of people. If a lot of people feel slighted at the very beginning, that attitude is going to be felt for the gathering by kinsmen and guests as well. So we greet the guests, we help them with their bags, we help them with their groceries, we make them feel warm and welcome. And they're basically, when they show up, until we get in the house and then start going back into a mood, they're the center of attention. Like, they get all the attention. How was your drive? Oh, great. And I see you got this thing. How do you like that store? I thought it was kind of cool. And then we just kind of do that, and we just make it about them when they come here. They feel special. They get their attention, and it's important, because there's not a lot of time as the gathering goes on. There's not always a lot of time to interact with your guests. That's kind of on the family and the other kinsmen and everybody to kind of interact, interchanging, while we're trying to, and I say we, I mean me and my gidya or whoever's in charge of whatever gathering, trying to organize the next event. Make sure that the dishes are getting done. Make sure that the right things are on at the right time in the kitchen. Making sure that the fire got lit and it's burning good and strong before bloat. We don't want to walk out there and have to fiddle around for 15 minutes to get the fire relit if we've already done that. So those are the kind of things we got to run around and do. And that doesn't always leave us a lot of time to just kind of get to know our guests really well. Those times we have to steal throughout the day. See somebody stand around looking a little bit confused or whatever. It's like, hey man, how's it going? Like, how'd you like it so far? What'd you think of this? And just kind of bring them into the conversation, include them, and then be like, oh, hey dude, he felt the same way you did about that thing. And then, just kind of just bring them in and make them feel like part of us, make them feel welcome. Because I've been to the ones where it's like you just kind of stand around and everybody's already got their clicks, and you're just like, I'm not coming back to this place. So you want to try and avoid that with your guests. If they don't come back, it should be because it wasn't a good fit. It shouldn't be because you were too distracted to be hospitable. And I'm saying that as the host, but there are also, of course, there are rules for the guests too, but we'll get to those in a minute. So guests arrive, we deal with that. The next main thing we do is, once everybody's arrived, is the procession. So before the procession, we kind of look around, make sure we got everybody. We have some horn signals that we don't usually put that on the videos, but we have a horn blast that gathers everybody, lets everybody know that it's time for procession, or 5-minute warning or whatever. Just so everybody, because they're out and about, they're doing all kinds of different things, exploring the land and having private conversations and that kind of stuff. So we sound the thing, and they come in, and then I always brief, even though, and a lot of times everybody that I brief has already done it, a dozen times. I do the same brief every time because I want to remind everybody that this is the time where we're transitioning between worlds. We're going from our time and place with all of our worries and problems and all that kind of stuff that we can't fix, and we're going to a place where we're going to sit and, for a moment, be with our gods and our ancestors and in our special creatures in our existence. So we're going to be out there for a little while, and we want to make sure that we can just leave all of that baggage behind. But that requires a brief. You got to say it. I even know it, and without saying it, sometimes I forget it. So it's just important to say it every time, to kind of make your own little spiel, and then just kind of repeat it every time. It's good for you, and it's good for them, and everybody gets on the same page. And what that will stop is, I've seen kindreds who, they walk their procession, if they even have one, and people are on their cell phone the whole time, texting, or just chatting, having side conversations. Nobody's doing what the procession was designed for, and that is getting in touch with the world around them. Start smelling the smells and feeling what the earth feels like under your feet. Feel the air on your face or the cold wind. Hear the birds and the squirrels chirping at each other, and just kind of get in tune, even the bugs, bzz, that kind of thing. Get in tune with the baseline of the environment that you're in, because once you get the baseline, now you're connected And when things happen that are outside the baseline or abnormal or a little strange, like the wind picks up or raindrops start to fall, or something happens that says, hey, the gods are here. You're in a mindset where you can actually receive that and catch that message. So sometimes in our videos, you'll see something weird will happen. We'll kind of look around like, was that just me, or did you guys all catch that? And sometimes we can show it, sometimes we don't catch it, but it happens, and it happens often. So we want to make sure that we are in a right mindset and in a right space in order to get that. So the brief before procession is always a part of it. And then we go out and we do our ritual. And I don't suppose I really got to explain what the ritual is. We do a bloat, and then sometimes there's a side ritual that goes with that bloat. We might want to bless something. Somebody might want to swear an oath, or this is where you would probably do a wedding. It's in the middle of that bloat. Or we'll do charming of the plow, or we'll do our Ostara, our little Ostara ritual. We have multiple rituals for Ostara, but that's, we have one that takes place during the bloat itself. Lots of other things like that can take place during the bloat itself. So we want to make sure that we build that into the time frame, and we go out there and we do these things until the ceremony is closed, which you've seen. If you watch our YouTube, then you've seen me do that. If not, I'd suggest bounce over to our YouTube channel and, browse through some of the videos there. There's a lot more there than just this podcast. There's, over 200 videos, easy. This is podcast number 6. So there's a lot of videos there that show the way that we make this work for us. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's what works for you, but it might inspire you to create your own way, or to maybe you had something in your mind and it happens to be the same way we're doing it, and just to see it visually just kind of helps you refine what you had planned. So definitely, if you have a need for the rest of this, the full story, absolutely go jump on our YouTube. We also had a vlog, so we would vlog. I don't know if we're going to be doing it this year too much, but last year we did a big vlog, so every gathering had anywhere from 1 to 3 videos covering just the goofiness, the revelry, the fun stuff. Very little ritual. The rituals were saved for separate videos, but anyway, it's fun to watch. It's good, and it helps you kind of get a really good feel for all of this stuff, because the more comfortable you are with it, then the stronger your connection is going to be, and the only way you're going to get comfortable with it is to do it. Just do it. Now, after ritual's over, we generally end it in the Ve, and then everybody just kind of wanders or meanders back at whatever rate they do. And usually at this point, we're probably tipping back a couple beers. We don't like to get drunk like we have before. Like, I'm not going to lie to you, but it's not the goal. The goal isn't to get drunk, but it's to have a beer or a wine or something, and just kind of be with adults and just kind of just talk and carry on. So after the ceremony is a good time where we sometimes go out and do any other study, or it's a good time to go get maybe even a couple of hours in on a good craft. Some of us will split up. We have different dishes that we make, so some people might go do craft and others cook, and then we flip-flop, or somebody's cooking on the grill and somebody's using the smoker or whatever. We have pretty good amenities here to cook with, and so that's kind of a bonus. But we like to eat well, so it's not always a potato salad from the grocery store. I mean, that's perfectly acceptable, but in a lot of cases, we'll whip up the potato salad here, and we'll roast an elk roast, or make some chili, or there's all kind of different things that we can do, and because we enjoy cooking together. I mean, what family doesn't love to cook together, So that's just one of the things. We all love to eat. We all love to cook. And it's just kind of one of those things. So after bloat, we all go in there and we just we're finalizing at this point. We're kind of goofing off a little. We're having some fun, doing some reading, some studying, and we're finalizing the menu and getting things laid out for the next ritual, which we consider feast as a ritual. Now, if you go back and you start reading about the old feasts and festivals, there was bloat, there was feast, and in the middle of feast was rounds of drinking and toasting and boasting and swearing oaths and that kind of stuff. So what we've done is, when I say we, I mean those that taught me Asatru and those that came before. So we do something called a summel, which I guess that's not technically the right name, but we're not going to go into the naming. That's a whole different rabbit hole to go down. But so we do the feast, and the feast and the summel we have separated. So I'll discuss that other ritual in a minute. But the feast ritual for us is it's a ritual, and it's important, and we have a ritual about it and the way that we conduct it. And ideally, we generally present the food very nice. And if it's a big feast, like a big one, like a Yule feast or something, there's so much food on the table, we all just kind of take our seats, and then we just kind of walk around the table. So everybody shifts around the table equally, filling up their plates until they get back to their seat and sit down, and everybody has a plate at that point. But before we get there, it is, and I'm telling you, sometimes we'll string together multiple, like big folding tables. But before we get to that, we have a couple other rituals that we do. The first one is we make a God's plate. And really, technically, it's for the whites, but we call it the God's plate. And sometimes it even requires multiple plates. And I have a big copper one, and Skogel has a big silver one, and then we have some various other ones that we use only for those purposes. So we have a couple of extras for the big feasts. And we put on a portion of every single thing, no matter what it is. If somebody empties a bag of jelly beans in a bowl, some of them are going on that plate. So it gets a little bit of everything, and then some beer or wine or meat or whatever we happen to be drinking also. And that will go up on the big horg in the living room, and it'll sit there until the end of the gathering. And that's just our little cut that we're cutting out, because when we close our ritual, we always invite the gods to come feast with us. So we always make sure that we set a feast plate aside for them and the whites and any other supernaturals symbolically that want to come join us for a feast. And then before we start serving, we do a gratitude, which is we have this little stone that says, it's engraved, it says gratitude on it. So we'll start at one end, and you hold the stone, and you're going to give something you've been grateful for. It's kind of like the Thanksgiving. I'm thankful for blah, blah, blah. So with the gratitude stone, it's just an opportunity to be grateful for something. And this isn't an opportunity to suck up. It's not like, oh, I'm grateful for being here, for being your guest. It's more like, what it does is it kind of fosters a mindset of, especially for people who come often, on that day, they're looking for the good. They're not searching out the bad. Nobody's looking to put a complaint in their pocket. They're like, hey, gratitude's going to be coming, and I want to find something really extra special to be grateful for. And they go through that. And we started this tradition long ago with our kids, whereas we would do gratitude before a meal every day so that the kids could spend the next day looking for something to be grateful for, not looking for something to be mad or triggered about. And after gratitude is done, then we sit down and we eat and we stuff our faces, and it gets quiet for a few minutes because at this point we put in the work, right? And we've done some work in the morning. Breakfast was a while ago. We've done ritual. We've done all this other stuff. Maybe some craft. It's time to eat. So we lay into it pretty good. And sometimes we do real simple. We do a smorgasbord. We just lay out a big sandwich table or something. Sometimes we'll do appetizers. Prior to ritual, we'll set some appetizers out, and, a charcuterie board or something. Our kinsmen are super generous with food. They love to eat as much as we do. So I'm saying all these great things, all this great food stuff, but understand this isn't all on the host. These are everybody's just kind of got their own thing that they do now. You almost know who's bringing what anyway, just naturally. But we've been doing this together for 3 years, so that kind of comes with the territory with just being that close for that long. But the guests can bring any kind of scattering of anything, but we do try to get this order to the guests as well, so they still have a good idea of what's going on. Even though they're only arriving on Saturday, they still got to know all the other stuff that's going to be happening, especially if there's a craft or something that they're involved in. So I try to get that order out to everybody that's going to be coming to the gathering. They may not get next month's order because they're not coming, but any gathering they come to, I try to get them in that order. So after feast, it's cleanup. Generally, it's just at this point, there's just stuff everywhere, and the kitchen's got full of dirty dishes, and the grill needs to be scrubbed down, and so there's all this cleanup, and it's nice because our kinsmen there's never any issues about leaning in and helping, look over and somebody's getting dishes cleaned up or putting them away, and, somebody else is putting chairs back in the garage or in the barn. So it functions really smooth, but it doesn't always, and it takes a little bit of practice and a little rehearsal time. But after a while, everybody kind of get used to knowing what the phases are, and then what their role in it is. And very often you won't see too many people just standing around doing nothing while everybody else is working, unless they're in some sort of a heated conversation about who knows what. And usually we just let that go, because that's kind of the point, right? The point of it is to get together and enjoy our time together and debate stuff. And, we don't have any lazy kinsmen. Everybody kicks in, even the kids, to help get everything up and ready for the next event, which in most gatherings will be our summel. And like I said, the summel isn't 100% traditional, but it is adopted from some very well-documented feasting ritual. So that goes along with the feast, which was technically called a summel. I guess it's so confusing. Let's don't go there yet. But the summel ritual is just essentially 3 rounds of drinking and toasts and boasts and whatnot. So the first toast goes up to Odin, and we'll raise a horn to Odin and welcome him. This is his ritual. And then the first round goes to the god or goddess of your choice. So that's open to anything. We don't venerate Loki here, so I ask that they don't do that. Hela, if they want, that's okay, but kind of not just on a whim. Like, if you have a reason to, that's fine. But if it's just because you're kind of punk rock about it, then probably not a good decision here anyway. So once that's done, when that round is over, the next round we do is to the fallen. Now, if you read traditionally about it, there was a toast to Frey and a toast to Njord and a toast to Odin, but they were just toast, like, hey, to Odin, to Njord, and then, at least that's how it reads. And then there was a braggy round, and there was a toast to the fallen, and they were kind of out of a different order, but I'll explain our order. So our second round is to the fallen. And while it would normally be the memory round, or the meanie cup would be the last cup, we find that enters, sometimes people kind of pour their heart out, they cry. We honor a lost kinsman, lost family, and that's not the way to end this ritual. So we move it to the middle. So in the middle, we can get those emotions out. And then the last round, Braggy's round, is open to anything. You can read a poem. I read lots of poetry in Braggy's round. I've seen people, my own kinsmen, propose in Braggy's round. I've seen oaths sworn, but kind of like it's good manners if you're going to swear an oath to maybe discuss it with people first. So, because when you swear an oath in a summel round, everybody's kind of bound by your fulfilling that oath. Everybody's kind of magically or sympathetically bound to that oath as well. Obviously, they're not going to reap the repercussions as you are for breaking it, but they're still kind of bound to it. So in a lot of cases, you should ask for permission to swear an oath at that one. And this is just our kindred. Like, if you're not into that, that's fine. Like, if you just want to blast an oath out willy-nilly, that's fine. We're not going to judge on it. It's just the way that we found we're most comfortable is if somebody wants to swear an oath, they ask us if we will accept the oath. And if they just stand up and swear an oath and there was no prior arrangement, we can evaluate. We can look around and they'd be like, I can accept that, or no, I don't accept that. And it's really like, if you owe some impossible, like, in this next 6 months, I'm going to go raise the Titanic with a weather balloon. Like, let's be real here. But we know people get a little loose, and they want to say some stuff. So we're here to keep everybody's honor clean. In a case of that, we would say, we don't accept your oath, kinsman, but, have another drink and we'll talk about it later if you want. And then everybody's the wiser. I really try around here to, as you probably saw with our, as I mentioned earlier, with our oath before our meeting, and then the way we approach oaths here in a summel, and when kinsmen swear in to the kindred, they swear their oath to the gods. We really try to make sure that they're not swearing fealty to the kindred or to us or to anybody in particular, because if that ever falls apart, which it has, if it does ever fall apart, then nobody has to be an oath breaker. Nobody has to be branded as an oath breaker for not, whatever, maintaining frith or whatever. So we don't do that, because I've seen, people grow apart after a long time. And a kindred's like a family, but some family members you can't stand. And when a kindred starts to get to the way of where people are starting to leave, we don't want them to leave on a broken oath. So at least up front, who knows how people feel about each other when they leave, but up front when they come in, we love them and we cherish them and we want to give them the best opportunity for success. And part of that is making sure that if situations arise where they have to leave, they don't have to leave on a broken oath. So that's just something we do, and that's why. So that would be the last round of summel. If an oath was to be sworn, it would be obviously cleared. But anything else can happen. Like I've seen a kinsman stand up and literally read the label off a beer bottle, and everybody just laughed. And I've seen him play guitar and sing songs and do all manner of things during Braggy's round. It is open to literally anything. So that's a good time. And even sometimes you just got more to get out, and we got another bottle of mead, and we'll just go in for a fourth round or any more consecutive rounds. And any rounds that follow Braggy's round are all pretty much just Braggy's round. If you want to do that, like I said before, I'll show you how. That's what I'm here for. My role isn't to tell anybody how to run their kindred or their gatherings or their rituals or anything else. It's just to show that we have a way. We're pretty steadfast in it. We enjoy it. It works for us. We all agree on it. And if we don't agree on it, we'll change it. But for now, we all agree. And your guests, if you brought your whole family or whatever, if you were invited and you brought the wife and the kids and everybody, which is certainly okay, you're responsible for those people. And I don't want to go into that too much because very few of you will ever end up in a gathering with us, at least not at that level. But I just wanted to kind of, for those of you that have a kindred, that those are the kind of things that you want to think about. And of course, we always, before we even invite a guest, we tell them, it doesn't work for a lot of people, but it does work for us, is that we film our gatherings, we film our rituals, we film a lot of the goof and the play and stuff. And of course, we're not going to edit anything to make anybody look, bad, or we're not going to take some conversation we accidentally picked up and broadcast it to the world. We're very, very guarded about any information we put out that involves our kinsmen. Generally, you'll only hear Skogel and myself speak in ritual, unless we've cleared it with them and we're like, hey, can we share this part because it was really, really touching and we'd like to share that. But they get full cut on that. But people have to know that, because some guests, they think, even though they see it on the internet and they see us on YouTube and that kind of stuff, but then they come as guests and they think that it's not going to be filmed, and it's like, oh, I thought this was like one of those other gatherings. No, this is what we do. This is, we're showing everything like raw as it gets, and they don't like that. So we try to really, if we invite someone, make them know that this is going to be filmed, it's going to be on YouTube, we're going to cast you in the best light possible, and and if you don't want to be like in the center, we'll do our best to keep you out of frame or keep you on the periphery or catch you from the backside or something like that. But we really do try to accommodate, but we can only accommodate so much because this is our life now. We are a kindred on the internet, and we are trying to help people discover their path. So as long as this experiment is lasting, our gatherings will be filmed, and that's just the way it's going to have to be. But it's only fair to let people know that. So if you have some quirky stuff like that, or you're going to go actually do a bloat with a live animal or something, those are things that your guests should know as well, because they may not be ready for that. They may not approve of that. And they're certainly able to have their own opinions when it comes to that kind of stuff. So Summel goes with its 3 rounds, and in the last, I know I got way off the topic. So anyway, toast to Odin, a round to all the gods and goddesses of your choice, a round to the fallen, the round to Bragi, and then the last toast, another one that I do as the officiant of the ceremony, is toast to the landvetter, the husvetter, the spirits of the land in the area that hosted us for this gathering. We always thank them, because I've done summels in some pretty strange places in the world, and I always like to thank the land that hosted that summel for us, and not forget to give them their little reward as well. And then sometimes in Summel and usually around Summel, before and after, there's other things to do. And we've got videos on our Yule celebration and some of our Yule UPGs and the things that we do. And I think that's kind of fun to watch, but it really kind of goes and breaks down like all of the extra stuff that goes into, the add-ons to the gathering with the Yule log tradition. And we do that peppermint pig tradition, and we do a sun wheel, and we have to work on the sun wheel and then take it out to blow it and have it. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into it, little mini traditions. We do a little gift exchange. At some other gatherings, we do various other things like the Ostara quest or other little puzzles and riddles and stuff like that. We'd like to have fun with it. So those things would happen in and around, some of those things will happen around Summel. And then once that's all done, then we'll close it. And at that point, unless we've already discussed it, the guests depart. So we try to make sure that our guests stay sober. Believe me, the quickest way to not get invited back is to get hammered and try and drive home, or get hammered and do something stupid because you were inebriated. We don't appreciate that, especially for our guests. Our kinsmen, sometimes once everybody's gone, we can get a little loose and pass out, but that's us. We're family at that point. So, but our guests have, a slightly different, I think, decorum. They got to stay a little bit more in control, which they should anyway, because it's not very appropriate in mixed company, especially new company, to lose your shit. So it's probably not a way to get, invited back very quickly. And then, so after the guests depart, hopefully everything's on good terms. And usually at that point, we don't care. By that time, we're kind of tapped out. We've been at this since, Friday night. And now here it is Saturday night. So it's either, we generally will break out whatever extra food we can get, some scraps, and then eat some snacks, play some cards. I'm not going to lie. We don't study at this point. We're done at this point. It's just playing cards, goofing off, drinking a little bit of beer, and then crashing out. And then in the morning, Sunday morning, maybe there's a little bit of cleanup to do. Usually we handle that. We just let everybody go. And then sometimes Sunday morning, everybody kind of trickles out on their own at whatever rate. And I usually just get a box of donuts. And then we got a pot of coffee going. Everybody just grab a donut or two, drink some coffee, and then boogie on out. And then we usually, after that, nobody usually talks the whole rest of Sunday. And then maybe Monday, we're just kind of like getting back in the groove of living our lives and everything. Usually by Tuesday or whatever, we're back on Discord or back in our different chats and stuff like that, and back at it, planning up for the next gathering, and maybe discussing some things that might have went wrong or didn't go as planned, or things we could do better, or things we should have done and didn't even think about. So we just kind of have those discussions, and then after that, then Skogel and I, we go through and we write it. We have a Kindred journal that's handwritten. We record the events from each gathering because, we've been at it for so long, and all the good times we've had at various all things and Kindred gatherings and moots and everything, none of it was ever recorded. So we made the same mistake our ancestors made. So we decided when we started Northwoods that we would create a Kindred journal, and we would journal every gathering. So then when kinsmen miss gatherings for one reason or another, that journal is always there. They can pick it up and they can read it. And it's separate. It's a whole separate entity from the logbook that we use during the actual formal Kindred meeting. This is something else. It's got a pretty cover and everything, and it just sits out, and you can go through it, and it's got the birthday cards taped in there because we give ourselves a birthday card every year, and you can roll through the list of guests that we've had and that kind of stuff. It's really neat, kind of a living history of the Northwoods Kindred from the beginning. So we got lucky because we started it at the very beginning, and we maintain that, and then from that we draw an after action report, and we send that off to, wherever it needs to be. So we have a Patreon. If you haven't seen the names that ran down in the front, I'll run them here at the end as well. And so our patrons get, they get the pre-gathering report. I know they're not coming, but they still get to see the whole planning process. And then they get to see the post-gathering report, the after action, so they can kind of deduce what fell apart and what we had to adjust. And then as well as anything else with who showed up and who couldn't make it. And if there's any key points, we'll throw that in there as well. And we also throw in a recipe of the month because, like I said, we really like to eat, and we're all good cooks. I mean, my wife used to run a restaurant. I'm professionally trained backcountry cook, so cast iron, Dutch oven type stuff. I'm good there. I could feed a whole logging camp. And then so we all really have our own little special areas, and we really like to do that. So we include one recipe, and it could be a dessert, bread. I like breads. I like making bread. So we could do a dessert, a bread, a main dish, a side. It really doesn't matter, but there'll always be like that one dish that kind of stood out. Like somebody brought this crazy salad or something, and that will always go there as well as a kind of a bonus to our patrons with a couple other little things anyway. So you can check that out. You can check out the tiers and everything. Our tiers are 3, 6, and 9, so that's pretty cool. So as I went through this, I think you could kind of peel off kind of like the roles of the guest, the host, and the and the kinsman. But so if you have any doubts about what is the roles of the guest and the host, maybe just read your Havamal. That whole first part is really essentially just laying out the rules for this kind of an interaction. And so, but ideally as a guest, always bring a contribution to the feast. It's always nice to know your host, to know something about them. Just kind of do your own know their names and stuff like that, because it's kind of weird. You invite these people to your house to have a gathering, and they're like, "What was your name again?" That's a little like, why are you at my house? Maybe I didn't do my due diligence before I invited you. So, make sure that you got your stuff together and you understand how the game is played, and then the host. Obviously, I covered a lot of the hosting side of it because that's really my primary duty. And there's a difference. A lot of kindreds split the difference between their chieftain and their gothi. The roles are different, and maybe that's a topic for another one. But I want to say that sometimes the gothi, the one who leads the ritual, isn't the chieftain or isn't the host. You're not at their house or their property, and so notice and pay respects too for all the extra stuff that goes into hosting the event. That, you can show up with an armload of groceries, but there's still electricity and the milk in the fridge and the extra sides and the spices and the pans and there's so much, the land and the firewood, and there's so much that goes into a gathering that can't be quantified. And I don't want to seem like that person who's hosting should feel like they're responsible for everything, because you shouldn't be. But just know that in the act of just in the pure act of hosting, you're giving more. So it's really nice when your guests, thank you for it, or come with a box of plastic forks or something like that also. But that's all getting a little bit deep in the weeds for all of that. I just want to really kind of lay down the idea that the chieftain and the gothi are not always the same, and the gothi is not always the host, because the chieftain is the one who's kind of really making sure that everything's working and putting in the extra work. So if you have that title, that's an important title to have. Don't belittle it. Now, I know we kind of been going on here a little while, and I hope that order was kind of clear for you. If not, listen to this again and grab your pencil and paper, and it really breaks down super simple. So I'm going to summarize the entire thing really fast with no super details, and then you can model yours after it if you feel that if you don't have a regular structure that works for you, or you just need a place to start. So it's going to start with us, with our multiple day gatherings. Is Friday night, kinsmen arrive, a little bit of meet and greet, getting to know each other, and let our kinsmen wind down, and then we eat. Then we go into a meeting. When the meeting closes, it's kind of goof off time until morning. In the morning, we have breakfast, we get ready, we do any other work that has to get done, and we start greeting our guests. When our guests arrive and everybody's here, we take a quick roll, we go do our ritual. After ritual, we go into finish some cooking, we do some feast, a little bit of more goof off time, do a sumble, guests go home, we hang out for the rest of the night, and in the morning we say our goodbyes. So that's the nuts and bolts of a Asatru Kindred gathering when you do it like us. Other people just show up on Saturday, get her done, move out Saturday night, and that's fine too. I just wanted you to know how far it can be taken and how rewarding it can be if it's managed properly. So thanks for hanging out with me here on the Northwoods Kindred Podcast. I hope I can see you next week, and count on you to subscribe to the RSS feed or subscribe to the YouTube channel, Northwoods Kindred. And then we even got a Northwoods Kindred blog. We have a link tree. We're all over the place, so dig around, find us somewhere. You can probably trace us back to everywhere else where we're at. Our goal is merely to help you find your place in this very mixed up and confusing world of Asatru. I'm Bodvar, the chieftain and gothi of the Northwoods Kindred. Þórr, viki, my friends.